Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world one book at a time.
So in this explainer, we're digging into Andrea J. Ritchie's book, Invisible No More. And her argument is really powerful. She says that certain experiences of police violence aren't just, forgotten about. They're actually produced by the system and then erased from the conversation on purpose.
The core idea here is that what we see, and maybe more importantly what we don't see when it comes to policing, well, it's not an accident. It's the outcome of a system that's designed to focus on very specific things.
What Invisible No More really gets at is this. Whenever we have these big public conversations about police violence, the experiences of Black women, Indigenous women, and women of color are almost always pushed to the side, or just erased completely. And that leaves this huge hole in how we understand the whole picture.
Okay, to really get how this works, the book gives us this fantastic metaphor. Imagine a huge, dark stage. And on that stage, there's just one single, powerful spotlight. Now, that beam of light, that's what decides who gets seen and who is left completely in the dark. And here's the crucial part. That spotlight isn't just randomly swinging around. No, the book argues it's aimed. It's intentionally pointed to shine brightly on certain people, defining them as threats. At the same time, it leaves others completely in shadow, making their experiences as victims basically invisible to all of us watching. And that's why this book is considered so important, as Michelle Alexander points out here. It's a direct challenge to that designed invisibility. It's all about trying to move these forgotten experiences out of the shadows and right into the center of the spotlight. All right, so let's get into the mechanics of it. How is that spotlight actually aimed? The book points to 4 key things that really direct the focus of the whole system.
First up is something called broken windows policing. The idea here is to aggressively go after all sorts of low-level offenses. What this does is just multiply the number of times police and people in the community come into contact, and every single one of those encounters is a new chance for judgment, for conflict, and for things to go wrong.
Next, there's the idea of intersectional exposure. Look, policing doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? The book shows how overlapping parts of someone's identity, like their race, gender, sexuality, or disability, can actually create these unique vulnerabilities. It can put some people at a much, much higher risk of being targeted or just misunderstood by law enforcement. Then you've got institutional incentives. Think about it. What if the system rewards the volume of arrests or tickets? The focus naturally shifts to quantity over quality, right? This can lead to more aggressive policing that never actually solves the root problems in a community. It just creates a cycle that feeds itself.
And last, but definitely not least, is narrative reinforcement. Invisible No More makes a really strong case that these aren't just the biases of individual officers. We're talking about deep historical stories and stereotypes about women of color that are baked into the very culture of policing itself. And these narratives end up shaping perceptions and being used to justify force.
Okay, so if we can see all these parts working, you have to ask, why is this system so incredibly hard to change?
Well, as this quote suggests, the book argues that the whole structure is held in place. It's stabilized by really powerful political and financial incentives. These forces are so deep-seated that they make the system super resistant to any kind of real fundamental change, even when everyone can see the problems.
So this all leads to a really crucial question. It's not just about policing, but about how we even see the problem in the first place. The book really makes you wonder, right? Why do we so often see these tragic incidents on the news and treat them like one-off, isolated events? Why don't we see them as part of a much larger pattern?
It's because focusing on these individual stories, one by one, actually fragments our understanding of the whole structure. We're so busy looking at the individual trees that we completely miss the forest.
And that right there, that is the crisis in perception. It's this inability to connect the dots, to see the whole system and how it's actually designed to work.
And you can see why it's so complex. Because policing isn't this standalone thing. It's woven into everything. Municipal budgets, the way the media frames these stories, federal policy, and even our own ideas about what safety looks and feels like.
So at the end of the day, the book is really asking us to make a huge shift in how we look at all this. And here's the core insight. It's about moving away from thinking about isolated incidents, the whole bad apple idea. Instead, it pushes us to see the institutional design, the pattern that creates these outcomes again and again. It's asking us not just to see an event, but to finally see the system behind it.
This project is free and publicly accessible.
If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis in Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon.
For a longer audio-based analysis of this topic, see the deep dive linked in the description.
If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.